One of Group 935's more forgotten about scientists, and perhaps one of the only ones to really have their head above their shoulders. My personal favorite ex-935 employee, Dr. Schuster. On May 10th, 1931, German scientist Dr. Ludwig Maxis founded Group 935, a research organization with the sole purpose of improving the human condition. The group itself housed scientists from all over the world, with one exception, the United States. Among the huge intake of new and eager scientists was Dr. Schuster, although it is unknown exactly when he became employed within 935. Dr. Schuster was part of Group 935's teleportation projects, and after Dr. Maxis and Richthofen were unable to make any progress using their teleporters, only creating zombified corpses instead, Richthofen approached Schuster for them to continue Maxis's work in secret. And so on December 4th, 1939, during their 151st test trial with the MTD, the doctors used a walnut as their test subject. This time, the doctors made a breakthrough. The walnut didn't only successfully teleport from the teleporter chamber to the mainframe, but it was also unfazed by Element 115's properties. They finally succeeded. Excited by their breakthrough, Dr. Richthofen rushes to Dr. Maxis to inform him of their progress on the teleporter project. What the two doctors were met with instead was beratement and belittling. Their work was treated as a joke and a complete failure. Congrats, doctors, you teleported a walnut. Time to get back to your real work. Insulted, Richthofen refuses to let this halt them when they're on the brink of something bigger than themselves. For their next teleporter trial, believing them to be ready for humans, Schuster is instructed to teleport Richthofen himself. A month later, from Edward's walnut delivery, the two doctors begin their first human teleporter trial. Richthofen enters the MTD chamber as the heavily worried Schuster activates the device. In a flash, Richthofen was gone. Except, he didn't arrive at the mainframe. In fact, Richthofen was nowhere to be seen. An entire month passed, and Richthofen never returned. Dr. Schuster was consumed with guilt, anxiety, and remorse. His friend was potentially dead. How was he to inform the higher-ups? Before another dreadful thought could enter Schuster's mind, the doors to the lab swung open, and a far more confident and aware Richthofen bursted through. He tells Schuster of all of his discoveries. It was a fairly busy month for the doctor. Richthofen, Schuster, and several other scientists employed under 935 abandoned the group's cause. While Richthofen continued his charade with Dr. Maxis, the rest were to be stationed at a facility that was being constructed on the moon, Griffin Station. A fellow ex-935 employee, Dr. Groff, was promoted as head scientist over Griffin Station and lead researcher for the Moon Pyramid device, with Dr. Schuster to act as a second-in-command of sorts. Together, the two scientists attempt to study the MPD throughout the course of several months. Unfortunately, the two were making zero observations on how to activate the device, what the device was capable of, or of anything of actual use. That was, until a rat managed to get itself into Griffin Station, squirming before the MPD. Schuster chased down the rat and crushed it beneath his heel, ending the rat's life immediately. Suddenly, a smoky yellow ball of light exits the rat's crushed corpse and travels into one of the 4 canisters that surround the pyramid. Schuster looks over to Groff, and the two silently understand what powers the machine. Groff then reports their discovery to Richthofen. Richthofen's collapsed sanity was beginning to seep through the cracks of his charade, and with this new knowledge presented to him, he is now one step closer to his grand scheme. The MPD requires souls, and Richthofen is more than willing to get them by any means necessary. Over 100 scientists and soldiers are sent to Griffin Station to be sacrificed to the MPD soul canisters, deeply disturbing both Dr. Schuster and Dr. Groff. On his time off from studying the MPD and sacrificing souls to it, Dr. Schuster would take some time to develop a pet project of his, moon golf. The bounce pads seen throughout the biodome are part of this strange desire to play golf on the moon, and even a miniature one that was presumably a prototype for its floating capabilities can be seen in the Black Ops 3 version of the map. I suppose when you have nothing else to do on an empty, gray rock, you gotta find ways to entertain yourself. His other pet project, shared with Dr. Groff, was the development of their own wonder weapon, the wave gun and the zap guns, respectively. Individually, the two zap guns acted as miniature Wunderwaffes, but on a far weaker scale. Frying its target string a blast similar to that of the ray gun, at least in its Black Ops 1 iteration. When combined, the weapons become the wave gun, which can inflate an entire horde of zombies until they pop. By October of 1945, the MPD's 4 canisters were full and further awaiting a subject to enter the device. At the final stages of his plan, Richthofen gets into contact with the United States and Soviet Union to discuss a deal that will split Group 935's resources 50-50 amongst the two nations after Richthofen is dealt with Dr. Maxis and his daughter. Richthofen then informs Schuster of his plans, and that Schuster will be given to a safe place of residence in the States in exchange for working with the US government. Believing their work to be thrown away to waste, Schuster tries to argue with Richthofen over this decision, but Richthofen rebuttals with,
"Everything this organization stood for died the day Dr. Maxis made that infernal deal with the Reichstag. You and I both know this to be true."
Worried still, Schuster asks him where Richthofen will be taken. Richthofen assures him that he will be well taken care of, before departing once and for all. Back at Griffin Station, Schuster and Groff were monitoring the MPD, awaiting for Richthofen's arrival. But someone else had arrived. The young Samantha Maxis appeared suddenly at Griffin Station, terrified and confused, gasping for air. She ran to the nearest thing she could, the MPD. Schuster tried to stop her, but he was too late. The young girl had practically become a goddess. Groff reports Samantha's appearance and situation to Richthofen, who orders them to find her father, believing that if she had survived, the Maxis must have as well. Through unknown means, the doctors secure Maxis from the crazy place and bring him to Griffin Station to confront his daughter, who has become corrupted by the dark ether. What Maxis does, in short, is encourage his daughter to unleash hell upon Group 935, before ending his own life. Consumed with vengeance, Samantha does exactly as her father instructed. Groff's fate is left unclear, and through a pure miracle, Dr. Schuster escapes with his life intact. In the new year, Schuster was officially an American citizen, through Operation Stapler, Zombies' version of a real-life event in American history, Operation Paperclip. America and the Soviet Union split the resources of Group 935's research and their scientists, just as Richthofen instructed, leaving Schuster in the Pentagon's 115 Division. Both countries were aware of Richthofen's base on the moon, and both strived to be the first to reach it. Thus began the space race. Outside of making rockets that could pierce into the heavens and reach the moon, both countries were also trying to utilize Group 935's teleportation research. The issue is, they both had their own roadblocks. But with Dr. Schuster's knowledge over teleportation, due to being part of their first successfully working MTD with Richthofen during the war, the Americans had the upper hand and developed their first successful teleporter in 1959. Albeit, the teleporters sent the individual between random places within the Pentagon, clearly showing signs of much-needed improvement. By 1961, Schuster developed a teleporter capable of sending someone from the Pentagon to Groom Lake. Besides assisting and leading their teleporter research, Schuster was also part of their undead research division, much to Schuster's dismay. Having been present at the initial outbreak event when Samantha had her ascension, Schuster tried to warn the CIA of her immense power. He begged and he pleaded for them not to walk down that same path that Group 935 did. The room then went silent. Only the sound of the ventilation system filled the air. Then, the silence was broken by an eruption of laughter. Nobody believed him. Now stationed at Groom Lake, along with Cornelius Purnell, Schuster continues to spread his ramblings, trying to warn someone who would be willing to believe him when it comes to the existential threat that Samantha Maxis poses. When Purnell asked a higher up of the station, George Sawyer, about Schuster's ramblings, he simply told Purnell to pay it no mind. But this incessant belief caught Purnell's attention nonetheless, and begins to investigate. Meanwhile, George Sawyer meets with Dr. Schuster to receive an update on their teleporter progress for sending individuals to the moon. Schuster tells Sawyer that he has no doubt that he can successfully teleport people and objects to the moon. He's not concerned about where. He's concerned about when. Laughing once more, Sawyer berates Schuster for implying that time travel exists. Schuster strikes back with,
"If the specifications are not exact, we could create temporal rifts with ripple effects that will undo the very fabric of space-time itself. Simply put, don't rush. Science moves at its own pace."
Sawyer gives Schuster 2 weeks to finish the teleporter before they begin testing, internally believing that Schuster is trying to sabotage their efforts due to his paranoid ramblings when it comes to Griffin Station and Samantha Maxis. 2 weeks pass, and Schuster is forced to begin teleporting human subjects to Griffin Station, whether he believes the teleporter is completely finished or not. And so far, none of his teleportations has worked as planned. They've been sent to the moon, yes, but they've arrived in the far-off future. More specifically, the year 2025, which is no longer the future. In August of 63, during Test Trial 11, Human Subject 5, Private Hastings, is placed on the Groom Lake teleporter pad. Hastings provides the ready-to-go signal, and Schuster activates the teleporter. And just like before, Hastings was warped to the future, except something was wrong. Someone else came through. 4 unconscious individuals. 4 individuals that Schuster recognized. Tank Dempsey, Nikolai Belinsky, Takio Masaki, and Dr. Edward Richthofen? Where did they come from? When did they come from? Unfortunately, these were things Schuster would never know, as Ultimus was taken away to Hangar 4, now as lab rats. Over with Schuster's zombie experiments, one of the other scientists in the division, Dr. Lehman, showcases to Schuster that he's managed to begin controlling the zombies through vocal commands, much to Schuster's dismay. Lehman explains that in order to achieve this, he converted element 115 into a gaseous state and had a human inhale it, which made them easier to control. Before he could even voice his extreme disapproval of Lehman's unethical behavior, he becomes distracted by the zombie's yellow, glowing eyes. A shiver went down his spine, realizing what could be going on. In reality, Lehman has been corrupted by Samantha's influence, and the orders he gave the zombies were simply part of the charade. Once Lehman was completely corrupted by her, Dr. Schuster walked into the lab, hearing Lehman muttering to himself. Questioning what he's up to, he sees Lehman infecting the ventilation system with the gaseous form of 115. Lehman looks into Schuster's eyes and he says,
I am doing what I have to do. You all must understand that you will all learn a hard lesson in how disobeying her wishes has consequences.
He unleashes the gas in the Pentagon. Schuster quickly grabs a gas mask to protect himself, and before he can face the consequences of his own actions, Lehman ends his own life. An undead outbreak occurs throughout the Pentagon, but it is contained. Ever since Ultimus's arrival, along with the Pentagon growing more aware of Samantha's existence and power, Samantha has been slowly infiltrating their defenses to make them cower in fear. Schuster's fate isn't told, but it's safe to assume he survives based on the Nuketown loading screen. Who was originally just an individual in a hazmat suit, was later revealed to be Dr. Schuster himself in the Call of Duty Zombies comics. Purnell would have Schuster operate the experimental Element 115 drilling device over in Nevada. This is where Schuster's story ends, along with this video, as that's all there is left to say. I hope you enjoyed. More so, I hope I did an okay job on this one. Schuster's one of my favorite side characters, so it's always a joy to talk about him. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.